Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the next installment of the NTC podcast. Aaron Washington here, Aaron Perlstein on my right. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, we are quite excited to be back with you guys for another episode of the podcast. Aaron, it's been quite an eventful past few days. We are tuning into the play-in tournaments here. We've had a few games already that have been very exciting. And I can't wait to see what's next coming tomorrow. So I hope you've been enjoying the games so far as much as I have.
Absolutely. I think the NBA is batting 4 for 4 in these playing games. I think that they've all been great. They've all been down to the wire.
I would say 3 for 4.
Oh, 3 for 4?
If you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, the first one. I get that.
That's where I'm at, man. The first game, yeah, maybe I'm a little biased, but I didn't think that was a great game, at least for a large majority of it. But yeah, I mean, overall, they've been great games. I think we've had a really good product on the court about 90% of the time for what we've seen so far. So that's been pretty cool. So we will definitely get into that here in a minute. But what I wanted to do here to start things off is basically do a little bit of an overview of the play-in tournament as a whole. So take like more of a macro view of the entire tournament, the format, how it's been implemented, and how we think it's been going so far. Because if you believe it or not, this is the 4th season of the play-in tournament. Right. 2020 was the first in the bubble. That's back before we had the 9-10s included. So that's back when we only had 2 teams. It was the 8-9. Way back, it was the Blazers and the Grizzlies faced off in that first playing game. So that was pretty interesting. I believe I want to say the Blazers came out on top, or the Grizzlies came out on top in that game, if I remember correctly. So that was definitely interesting to see in the first season. But going forward, of course, they expanded it. So starting in 2021, they added in the 9-10. So as the 10th seed, you still have an opportunity to make the playoffs. Same with number 9. You just have to win 2 games as opposed to 1, and you're on the road for both games. So it's really an uphill battle. They designed it in such a way that it's definitely geared towards those higher seeds to make it into the playoffs. But obviously, just like a March Madness format, you never know what's going to happen. As we saw last night, the Thunder were the 10th seed. They went into New Orleans, they got the win. So
Bulls too.
Yep, the Wolves too. I mean,
Bulls,
there were some both of those were the Bulls. Yeah, the Bulls. That's what I meant to say. But both of those games were very competitive. I mean, all 3 games pretty much down to the wire. We didn't know who was going to come out on top. So just to give you the floor real quick, I mean, what has been your overall impression of these playing games now that we have like a pretty large sample to work with? And do you want to see the NBA continue to go to these playing games at the end of the season for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I think it has, very, very good effects, especially on tanking. I know we saw the Mavs situation, but I think that's a very 1 in a million situation where the NBA is going to get involved. But, I think it has an effect on tanking. I think you can see the competitiveness, and it just adds another element to the season that, it's just, and the league as a whole that's ever growing and increasing in popularity. And, everyone can, argue and complain, but those were 4 quality games that we just saw. What's better than quality basketball? I loved it. I like the quality of game. I like the amount of defense and playoff atmosphere. I think it changed from game, like your Heat. I enjoyed that because Spoelstra is one of my favorite coaches to really dissect. And, unlike Willie Green last night, I felt, even though they lost, they really threw everything but the kitchen sink at the Hawks. If that was changing into drop coverage, in the 3rd quarter, they iced the screens. In the 4th quarter, they tried to double them. Early on, they were switching. They were trying everything. Obviously, it came down to rebounding, and really, he should have taken away the middleman after a double or a switch of screens. But I enjoyed the just playoff atmosphere of in-game game plan changes. Just going at each other, and it's exactly what playoff atmosphere should be. And people had concerns going into the play-in situation, but it's exactly what the NBA is expected.
That's what they were trying to do. They were I mean, to start at the very beginning, your first point was to discourage tanking, and I think that's been a huge success. The Thunder being a key team. If this was in the old format where it's just 1 through 8, maybe we see the Thunder do like a soft tank. They're just kind of like tailing off towards the end, not necessarily like just go full out, just lose every game, but maybe they don't put as much effort into getting to this point as they have so far.
Yep, absolutely.
Like you saw how they performed the last few games leading up to the play-in tournament. I mean, they've been gaining steam for several weeks. So I mean, it's definitely been a success in that regard. And then of course, it's just more experience, more playoff experience for the young guys coming in. Like Jalen Williams is getting some great experience right now, and those other guys that are on these teams. So I mean, these aren't officially playoff games, but the NBA does is they kind of put all these stats in their own category, so they don't count towards regular season or playoffs. But as you said, the atmosphere is basically playoff. It's a playoff atmosphere. You got to think of it that way. Right. If you look at how much these guys are competing, if you look at who's playing, you look at the fans, the coaches, like how hard these guys are going, it might as well be a playoff game by all intents and purposes. So I think that's what I've been enjoying the most out of it, is just the competitive nature that it brings on everybody.
Absolutely.
Just keeping teams in the mix, give them something to play for, because it wasn't any fun being the 9-10 in years past. It's like, we're not going to get a great draft pick if you're near 9-10. We're probably not going to make the playoffs unless we're like within a game or two. So you're just kind of left in a middle ground. But now you're firmly in the camp of let's continue to compete, because what's the alternative? Like the Bulls were far better than all the other teams behind them, the Wizards, the Magic, the Hornets. So they kept going. And then sure enough, they're out here in playing for the number 8 seed. They have a chance tomorrow to wrap that up against Miami. So I think it's been a huge success. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just been great. I think it's just the atmosphere you see. How many teams came back from? I mean, the Heat came back from 20. The Bulls almost came back around 20. Pelicans were down. They came back. Lakers were down. They came back. It was it's exactly what you want in some really, really important games.
I mean, yeah, the product, you can't deny the product that's been put on the court. And then obviously, because of no trade clause, we look at the business of the league as well. In addition to the on-court product, it's great for business.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just one more thing they can promote on TV. It's another commercial. It's another campaign. More games equals more revenue.
Yep.
And what we've seen this year specifically is some of those teams that would traditionally be in, let's say, 3, 4, 5 seed, they've had some injuries. Prime example, the Lakers. If they're fully healthy, I doubt they would be in the 7 seed right now, or they were in the 7-8 playing game. But they made that trade. I mean, they started 2-10.
Yeah.
They had I think a less than 10% chance of making the playoffs when they were 2-10.
Yep.
Here they are at the 7 seed. And I really honestly think, I don't know about how you feel about this, I think they can make a run through the playoffs. I don't know about, I'm not saying championship, but I think they can at least win one round and going forward from there. Do you like their chances to get out of the first round? What do you think about that?
I've learned my lesson. I'm never counting out a team with LeBron James.
Can't do it.
I've done it too many times before, and he's made me eat my words. So absolutely, I totally get that. I think the Grizzlies are as hard as it gets at the beginning, like in the first round. And can Anthony Davis stay on the floor? Can guys like Malik Beasley, Austin Reeves, Dennis Schroeder, can he hit that shot? Can he keep consistently hitting those shots? Does LeBron have to do everything? Can he get good quality minutes off the bench? Thomas Bryant, it's going to come down to those kind of situations because LeBron can only do so much. And this is one of the most unique rosters around him, I'd say. And can Vanderbilt stay out of foul trouble and really, stay on the floor and be a defender? But I can absolutely see them doing it. If they get to the Grizzlies, I can see it. It's not exactly what I predict, but I won't be shocked. I'll say that.
Okay, fair enough. And I bring up the Lakers specifically because they have two of the game's biggest stars, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. If they're in a playing game, I mean, that just helps you so much as far as the engagement from fans. LeBron James is still arguably the most famous star in the NBA as a whole. And he has his face on billboards in these promos for the playing game. Davis, too.
Yep.
You're looking at huge stars that can help drive this thing, get more eyes on it. So now these fans that are more the casual fans, it's not the playoffs yet, but it's like, oh, hey, check out this play-in tournament. LeBron is involved in this. Anthony Edwards is involved in this tournament. I mean, some of the game's biggest stars, the up-and-comers. So I think they benefit as well. Shea benefits from this. The Thunder are still not one of those teams that get a whole lot of coverage, I feel like. They're still kind of that lower echelon. It's a very small market. And, they're just now getting their big star in Shea. And then getting some other guys to come alongside him and bring them recognition. But they get more coverage. The Pelicans get more coverage. They're without Zion, but they're still in the limelight. All these other teams, the Hawks, get some coverage. So, I mean, it helps everybody, I feel like. Just have another stage to perform on. So that can only help the league, the players, everybody gets more involved. So I love that aspect of it.
Absolutely. And, I'll never, I'm just going to, never going to shy away from an ability to shout out Sam Presti. We saw last night they have a high chance to get into the playoffs. You have an unbelievable situation. Chet hasn't even played yet. You have more first-round picks coming. It's some pretty exciting stuff in OKC.
It really is. I mean, I can't say enough good things about them. I was rooting for them last night to pull it out against the Pelicans. So when they did that, man, I was so excited for him. And I've been a huge fan of Shea pretty much ever since he got to OKC. I was going
to say, this is something I tweeted. Where do you list that PG trade now? Because, everyone wants to talk about the Rudy Gobert trade, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. No one really talks about the Paul George trade, because I would say it's worse than the Rudy Gobert trade because we haven't seen the full effects of the Rudy trade. We saw Walker Kessler's rookie year. Okay. And I know there are many picks attached to that, but we haven't seen what the picks have done. Yeah. With the Paul George trade, Shai has gotten better every single year to a point that he may have a bigger impact on OKC than Paul George did.
Mm-hmm.
And they have panned out all the picks, a lot of the picks. There's still more to come. So I think that's one of the biggest blunders, I'd say. I mean, you don't get Kawhi if you don't get Paul George. I know there's some intricacies like that. And I would say if you had to do it again, you'd probably do it again as Paul George.
Oh, yeah.
But
every time.
The impact it had on the OKC organization is not talked about enough.
I agree. I really do. It's substantial. I mean, I think that the Clippers were right to do the trade, and I just know it broke them to have to get rid of SGA. They knew he was going to be special. They knew it. They didn't give him up because they didn't believe in him. It was just the cost of doing business. They had to do it. But I think that they were right to make that decision. But I do agree that if we look at how the trade has broken down over the past 4 years since it happened, that's crazy to say. I can't believe it's been 4 years.
Yeah.
That it's worked in favor of OKC because, and I think it's for one reason, Clippers don't have a championship.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they won, that's different. I'm like, okay, you won the trade because you accomplished your mission.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is always the case. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like, were you able to accomplish what you set out to do? They haven't done that yet. I doubt that this year's going to be any different. Paul George is out to start the playoffs. I don't see them making a run. I haven't seen – they've been very inconsistent all year long. They haven't been healthy. They haven't gelled as a team. They haven't had a stretch of like 20 games where I'm like, okay, they're out for blood.
I mean, they're playing KD in the first round.
Yeah.
So, good luck. Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. I think that's always the case. I think if you go back to historical comparisons, the AD trade to the Lakers, you're giving up Lonzo, Brandon Ingram picks, it still have ramifications today. But it won. It worked because
they got their title.
Won the championship. Regardless of what the assets got to the Pelicans, you won the championship. The Drew Holiday of the Bucks. You gave up 3 first-round picks. A lot of people clown that. They won the championship. So exactly. That's the ultimate goal of this game. You do it. You're with only a few teams, and it's a big accomplishment. That's as big an accomplishment as you can. So,
Huge.
yeah, I would say that would change a lot, and I think the failures to actually compete in the Western Conference by the Clippers has a big impact on that trade for sure. On the trade,
Oh,
yeah, like us talking about it now.
yeah. I mean, and it's like I want to tie this back into the play-in tournament because that's what we've been kind of looking at so far. I went back and looked at some historical results of the play-in because I kind of forgot like what happened in these games. And I think what spurred me on to take a look at this is it's a project that both of us are working on right now. We have something in the works as far as the NBA Summer League goes. So we're thinking about doing some trivia out there. And when I was thinking of trivia questions, I came upon some of the results from the play-in tournament because I was doing a bunch of research. I was going back in the past and I was looking at final records and like results, and I was like, oh yeah, that team didn't make the playoffs, but they were in the play-in tournament. The Clippers are an example of that. Last year, they were in the 7-8 game. They won.
Right.
They were in the 8-9 game. So they played the Pelicans. They lost that game. So they lost against the Timberwolves and they lost against the Pelicans. So they didn't even make the playoffs last year. The Pelicans were the 8th seed and the Timberwolves were the 7th seed. So you just think about that and you're like, that Clippers team didn't have Kawhi Leonard. So I feel like they didn't ever had a chance to make a run anyway. But like a lot of these play-in tournaments, it's like you look at the Pelicans last year. They made the playoffs as the 8th seed. I mean, they weren't too far off from upsetting the Suns, the 1 seed. I mean, they really did well in that series. So even teams that come in and they're a play-in team, it doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, these guys are going to get wiped off the floor. They can still be some very competitive games. I mean, probably not going to win a series, but they can definitely be competitive. So I just love the fact that we can see a team. Maybe this year it's the Bulls or something like that. Maybe they can come in and they can make the playoffs, as opposed to another year they would not make the playoffs. So I just love that extra opportunity it gives these teams. Let's say you had a down season and, hey, we were hurt, like the Lakers. They were down AD for several weeks. They were down LeBron for several weeks. They still rallied together and found a way to get into, after that play-in game, the 7th seed. So it's almost like a chance to redeem yourself, so to speak. If you have a down year and you're in the play-in, you're not out. You're not finished.
Right. Absolutely.
You still have something to play for. I
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing with the Maverick situation, where we haven't seen, like everyone talks about, oh, we've seen tanking before. We've seen look at the process. Look at the Thunder. We've never seen a team bypass a chance to make the playoffs to get a pick. And that's why it's so important. That's why there was an investigation involved, because they truly did have a path. Like you said, it's opened up such a door to have a different path into the playoffs, and to bypass that hurts the league. So that's why it's such an important situation for them.
It is. And that's I guess what it came down to in the Mavericks camp is it worth it to compete? And it might sound crazy just hearing that off the rip, but if you think about it, it's like, okay, if they won enough games, maybe they sneak into the 10 seed. I don't think they would have gotten up to like 8 or anything like that, but maybe they get into 10.
Yeah, but I mean, you're still playing playoff basketball.
Yeah. I mean, you're playing playoff basketball. I mean, these are definitely meaningful games, but they have to win 2 games just to actually get into the playoffs. And then on top of that, your best case scenario is the 8th seed. You're playing the Nuggets in the first round. It's just I can understand why they did it. Right. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm like, oh, that's great that they did it. Like, it's definitely, it hurts the league, but I can see the reasoning.
No, absolutely. If we're going like just the actual semantics, I think anyone would really make the same decision. You gotta win 2 hard-fought games, or you had to win 2 games to again get to the play-in, and then play the Nuggets that have been the best team in the league. So I totally get it. It's just a very unique situation for sure.
It is, and John Hollinger brought up a good point. I feel like I reference one of his articles like almost every pod. But in The Athletic, he did an article about the Maverick specific situation, why it's so unique. The reason why they did this is because that pick that they have has protections attached to it.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the protections that put it right there in that range of being in the play-in mix. So
That's
it fell
true.
at 10, and that's why they did it. Now, if it was top 5 protected, something like that, then it's a different story. You're not towing that line. But since it's 10, it's like, oh, if we make the play-in, we can be forfeiting that pick. If we make the play-in, make the playoffs, we can lose it outright. And they're I think it's also because of their roster construction. They looked at the state of their roster after the trade. I think everybody can see, wow, this roster is shallow. Like, we lost a lot to get Kyrie. Whether you actually draft a player with that pick or you just trade it, I mean, it's an asset that you can use to rebuild that team. So I think it was a combination of the protections of that pick, and I think John Hollinger was advocating for pick protections to be changed so they can be protected in that middle range of like 8, 9, 10, maybe only like 1 through 5 or something higher.
Well, we've always had lottery though. That's the same kind of situation. It's don't make the playoffs, lottery, don't make the playoffs. Now I get it. We have this kind of gray area, but I wouldn't say it's different than a lottery protection.
Yeah, it's the same as it would be in the past. Like before we had the play-in, and then you had a lottery protected pick. So it kind of works the same way. It's just
I mean, I'd say I don't think we've ever seen. I bet there has been a team that has prayed that they lost the last few games and fallen out of the playoffs.
Yep.
I bet we've seen that. But this one, I guess, is just unique because of the play-in situation.
It is. It's funny. Actually, I'll save that. I'll save that for when we get to the. I got a point about some of the Heat fans right now, with the case they're making, but I'll get to that here in a minute when we get to that. But yeah, definitely some interesting stuff here. I think overall, the play-in tournament, I think we can all agree it's been a success for the league. I think we're all in agreement. It should continue going forward, because if we can eliminate the number of teams that are trying to lose down from whatever it was before. Before it was 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, you're talking from 9 all the way to 15 in both conferences. That's a lot of teams that kind of mail it in.
Yeah.
Now you're cutting that down to, at most, you're going from like 10 teams, 11 teams down to like, let's say 6 maybe in the league that are like really like, hey, we're mailing it in. That's really good progress overall for the league. We want to see parity. That was the main goal with this. Like, there's obviously going to be tiers. There's always going to be tiers. But if we can get all these guys as close together as possible, the league is going to be in a better place. We're not going to have, these teams are worth watching and everyone else just gets kicked to the curb. Now everybody's relevant. Everybody's important. And again, it helps the league's bottom line. That's what they all want to see. So
that's for sure. And no, that's a great point.
Yeah, you can't argue with that, man. So I think that's where we're at.
Exactly.
And I want to see that continue. But zooming in a little bit now, looking at the current play-in situation. So let's review what's happened so far. We've had the 9-10 games already. The first game, 9-10, we had a couple of days ago. Actually yesterday, we had Raptors-Bulls. So we had that one take place. That one, I was leaning more towards the Raptors to take that game just a little bit, but I knew it was going to be close. And it came down to the Bulls just having their 2 stars show up. That's what they needed. That's what they got. And the Raptors, with all their length, with all their versatility, with all their switchability, were powerless to stop it. Levine had his way. 30 points in the second half. I mean, he's really picked it up. He had a really rough start to the season. His shooting percentages were down. He didn't look like the same guy. The lift wasn't there, but he really turned it around, I think, the last 20 or 30 games, and he came through in a big way for that team. And we also can't forget the MVP of the game, which, of course, was Drozen's daughter.
Yeah, was
did a job.
I mean, like, it's all jokes, but like Scotty Barnes in his interview said, like, yeah, I heard her and clearly had an impact because we missed 18 free throws.
18 free throws, baby. There's a stat out there that says like it's
no, they
basically
haven't done that yet.
I think it's like 1,000 games it's happened. That's like the second time it's happened. Like 18 free
So
throws.
she had an impact. Like as much as the joke is, like she genuinely had an impact. So, and I saw just on Twitter, I know DeMar said she has to go back to school, but United offered to fly her out.
Wow, I didn't see that.
So
pretty cool.
And then everyone making jokes. Pat Riley's going to make sure she's not under the basket.
Yeah, she's going to be sitting in the standing room only level.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll still be able to hear her, I think, because we heard her loud and clear on the TV. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I heard it too. I was like, "Who is that? Like, is this some crazy lady?"
Progression. Also, it was like you heard it, and then he started talking about it, and then Doris started talking about it. And then they did split screen, and then I was pissed about it. Yeah, I mean, I've always I'm a very big Bulls fan since I was a kid, and I loved seeing the fight at the end. Obviously, the first half was hard, but Zach LaVine really took over. And I do believe he was hurt at the beginning of the year. I think that knee problem was really, really bothering him, and I think now he definitely has a lot more movement and flexibility. But I think you're absolutely right. I think they controlled the game, they controlled the tempo, and really just played their game to get back into the game. I think obviously the free throws had a big impact, but the Raptors had a lot of offensive fouls in the fourth quarter. And it really just came down to, who wanted it more at the end. I feel like when you lose a 20-point lead, it's hard to really stay energized and engaged as much. And we really saw that with the Raptors. And I hated how it ended. That wasn't a shooting foul on Caruso. And it's one of those rare encounters where we call it right on the floor and then go to the monitor and call it wrong, which still don't understand how that happens.
That was bizarre. I can't believe
that.
But
it was only right that DR got to ice the game. So
for sure.
It was only right she got to ice the game and make Siakam miss 2 free throws. So it's a storybook ending for her. And I hope she enjoys the internet fame she got last year. She deserves it.
Yep, she 100% deserves it. And I think another factor in all this for Chicago, and it's been building over several weeks, is that defense they've been putting on the floor. I think it's been really solid. That stretch when the Bulls made their comeback. I mean, Toronto they were stuck in neutral. Their offense, they weren't getting anything. It's like legitimately like at the rim or any good looks, any solid looks. Beverly, I think, has made an impact on that end. I think getting him, I think it was like underrated. Most of us saw that and it's like, oh, Patrick Beverly got traded again. Okay, big deal. He's gonna go be a pest, whatever. Okay. But he like legitimately went in there. I think their defense immediately got a boost. And Caruso, I think Doris Burke was advocating last night for him to make a all defensive team. And I mean, he's just ever since he's been with Chicago, before Chicago, he's been the ultimate pest. I mean, great hands, great instincts, playing tough. That whole team has really kind of rallied. And over the past 2 weeks, according to Cleaning the Glass, I mean, they have the 9th rated defense in the league at 113 points per 100 possessions. So it isn't like a flash in the pan. It's not like yesterday they just, all of a sudden, like just figure something out. This has been trending for several weeks now. So that was really impressive to see as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're spot on. It's night and day from the beginning of the year for the Bulls. And, I used to not really enjoy his kind of antics, but I think it might be those situations where you like him when he's on your team and not, like I'm guessing you really don't like Joakim Noah. I love that guy to death. Patrick Beverly, what he's done to the culture, I feel like in his short time with the Bulls has actually been pretty insurmountable. I just feel like he has an impact on everything. I feel like when the players speak about how he is and the way he carries himself in the locker room, really awesome. And I think it speaks to just the kind of teammate he is and how, aggressive he is. So hopefully they can, figure it out, come tomorrow and get in and play a division foe like the Bucks.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun to follow for sure. Another 9-10 game took place yesterday. Pelicans. We talked about this a little bit already, but Pelicans Thunder was the second game, and that was a thriller. That was fantastic. So obviously the stars of the show for the Thunder were Shea and Josh Giddey. I mean, Josh Giddey almost had a triple-double in that game.
Yeah.
And you can see just where his size and basketball IQ comes into play, just making great passes. Even though he's not like the quickest guy, the most athletic guy, the fact that he's just straight up like 6'8", that helps him a lot on both ends. Like just having size. You know, he doesn't necessarily have to be like LeBron James, but I'm like, dude's 6'8". Like you look at him on the floor, and it's like he's like a pretty legit sized dude out there.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can't sleep on that impact. So him going out there and, you know, underrated part of his game that's coming together is the 3-point shot. He's still not, you know, an incredible shooter by any stretch, but he's starting to creep into the low 30s. And he was 3 of 7 yesterday, so it's about 42, almost 43% from three last night. So he came through in a big way. And then how about Dort? 20 points in the first half, 4 threes. Hey man.
And I mean, it was the defense down the stretch, honestly, that really did it for me. But I think listeners know how much I love Jalen Williams, J-Dub. You know, he's you know, I expected this out of him, and it's exciting to see that it came to fruition. But let's talk about the other Jalen Williams. I mean, Thunder played 48 minutes without a center. Somehow the Pelicans didn't take advantage of that. You know, Valanciunas had 16 and 18 on 9 shots and had 0 shots in the third quarter. That's obviously a big thing that is going to haunt them.
Missed opportunity.
But I mean, 8 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. Great team defense. Really was an all-out effort when Valanciunas got the ball. And I think he had a hard time with his shot, but hit the shots that mattered. And I mean, it was just a testament to the Thunder situation, the young talent they have.
Mm-hmm. And we can't read too much into plus minus numbers, but I mean, he was plus 20 for the game, Jalen Williams.
Right.
He will. To be specific. But I mean, plus 20, and like you said, I mean, 8, 8, and 8 with 1 steal. You know, pretty cool stuff. And he held his zone. I mean, he was really undersized most of that, pretty much the entire game. And you know, he had 4 fouls, but I mean, to hold your ground and to not foul out and to be able to play a full 32 minutes in that game, I mean, that's serious. It tells me he's disciplined, because we've seen much better players have trouble with that. I look at Cat and I look at Jaren Jackson Jr., 2 guys that when they're guarding somebody on the other end that they're undersized, or you know, they're just guarding a really tough matchup on the other end, they accumulate fouls and it really cuts into their playing time. So the fact that Jalen Williams, you know, wasn't in major foul trouble, I think that's underrated part of his game, or underrated part of last night's performance. But I think it's worth talking about, because that's not easy to do against somebody that is basically like, I mean, you're just really just out, you know, at a deficit size-wise. But he made up for it with his activity.
Right, and I think it's just a great game for the coaching staff. I mean, your front court was Jalen Williams, Lindy Waters III, Aaron Wiggins, and that's what you rolled with. You had no center, and it worked out. It was a lot more defensively, like, team-oriented. You know, I think they're just excited to be there. You know, you might, if you win the next game against the Timberwolves, you are playing the best center in the league. So without a center, that sounds like a little problematic, but you know, it's an exciting time regardless for the Thunder.
It is for sure. Now the Pelicans were on the other side of things. They couldn't pull out of the play-in tournament here. This season overall, it's been a roller coaster. They haven't had Zion since January 2nd. That was very disappointing. But what the Pelicans can hang their hat on is that just about every single young player on their team got better this year. Specifically Trey Murphy III. I mean, he's turned into a bona fide sharpshooter. The stroke looks great. I mean, he's hitting on a good percentage of his threes. He had 21 last night. Herb Jones, I mean, he's got to work on his shot, but he's coming along very nicely. Dyson Daniels had his moments, even though he got a DNP last night. And then Brandon Ingram really kind of took control of that team over the last month or so of the season. After he came back from that toe injury, I mean, he was just I think he had a couple of games where he was rusty, but that he just took off. He was a force. 30 points last night on 10 of 19 shooting to go along with 6 rebounds and 7 assists. So, I mean, I mean, he's not Zion necessarily, but, like, the dude's legit. And he really put the team out there. So, a lot of good things for Pelicans this season, even though, they lost in the play-in tournament. But, I mean, you had some injuries. I mean, I don't think they have anything to be ashamed of. They really fought hard, and, they made the most of what they had. You're missing your best player. There's only so much you can do.
Absolutely. I think you hit it on the head. And I would just add, I would have loved to see just better game planning down the stretch. In the third quarter, first of all, we talked about Valanciunas with 0 shots. That can't happen. Guy was cooking on 9 shots at 16 points, 18 rebounds. I mean, I just don't understand how you shy away from that. I know he got hurt a little bit, but and then on top of that, and late in the third quarter, I remember Herb had 12 shots, and CJ and BI had 12 shots combined. I understand, and shout out to Shami Dua on Twitter. We had a conversation, and I know him well, and he knows basketball really well. He's right that the doubling and the hedging forced Herb to be open compared to CJ and BI, and he should take those shots rather than not, because he'll be sagged off even more if he doesn't take the shots. But you need to adapt. That ball needs to be in CJ or Brandon Ingram's hands in third and fourth quarter. That it needs to. And I understand, they're doubling the screen, they're blitzing, but figure it out, for lack of a better word. Like I was saying in the beginning, like, props to Spoelstra. Like, he tried everything. He changed a lot of things around. I just didn't feel like there were any changes to the Pelicans situation, and adjustments could have really played a big impact in that game for them.
I mean, definitely. I mean, the players play on the court here. I mean, they're the ones that get the majority of the blame or the praise, depending on how things go. But we can't overlook the coaches. They're out there. They're making game plans. They're making adjustments or lack thereof. And, they have to be held responsible as well. So, I mean, Willie Green definitely, like you said, has some things he can improve upon. But it's kind of like him. It's the same with him as it is for the players, the younger players in the roster. This is how you learn. You go through your growing pains. You have times where you make the wrong decisions, wrong coaching decisions, and he'll learn from that.
Absolutely.
He'll definitely learn from that. He's done a good job, though, and so far in his tenure, and I expect him to come back next year with that knowledge of what to do and not to do. And then hopefully he's not just be healthy, man. We need to see him on the court. He's too talented to be on the bench for 2/3 of every season. I just want to see more of him. So
absolutely.
That's where I'm at. But going forward here, I was dreading this moment, but I think it's about that time to get into that first 7-8 game, the first play-in game of this year's tournament. Very unfortunate start to the game for the Miami Heat versus the Hawks. First of all, let's acknowledge the fact that the Hawks out-rebounded the Heat 63-39. That's a pretty big margin. And, rebounding is not going to automatically win or lose you the game. But, I mean, if you lose the battle that badly, I mean, do the math, 25 rebounds you were down on in that game. You make Capella look like Wilt Chamberlain. All those wings looked like they were going to get every rebound. I mean, we're talking about Sadiq Bey, DeAndre Hunter. It wasn't just Capella. It was everyone. Second chance points, offensive rebounds all over the place. It's disheartening, man. Like, it's disheartening. It's discouraging. And I think that had a little bit of a trickle effect there, just affecting guys' mindsets and efforts. So that was disappointing from my perspective to see. And he just didn't come up with a lot of urgency. I was just really shocked to see that. Missed layups. The focus wasn't there. missed box outs, missed rotations on defense. I mean, Hawks were getting wide open 3-pointers. Bogdanovich. I mean, these are guys that you're supposed to be game planning for, and I don't put that on Spo. I put that on the players. And like you said, coming back to your point from earlier, Spo changed the game plan throughout the contest. But at the end of the day, if your players don't execute, if your players don't box out, they don't rotate on defense. They're not making their layups, bunnies. I mean, Jimmy had about 3 or 4 alone. Bam had several. I mean, there was one where he got the rebound and he went up. And I swear he was right there at the rim, and he missed the entire rim. It went backboard to the other side. And I'm just like, is he hurt? Is he, do you lose a bet? Like, what is going on? This isn't the guy I'm accustomed to seeing. So, what other takeaways, if any, do you have from that game? Just, I don't know what else to say.
I mean, I think I said most of them, but I think the biggest thing was, I mean, I totally understand all of that, but hey, let's give some props to the Hawks. I mean, they played a great game.
They knew what to do.
They played a great game. Like they really did. I really felt Quinn Snyder had a big impact on that game. I just felt the game plan was sound. They really got the ball moving. Obviously, the rebounding helped them, but I felt people were hitting their shots. They were getting the cutter, and then they had a lot of movement defensively, and I think they came out strong and really didn't lose a step. Obviously in that run with the Heat, they, like I was saying with the Raptors, it's hard to continue the energy when you lose a big lead. But I didn't feel there was a big mishap or lapse of energy.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like the ball was going the Heat way, and then it's a game of runs, and they really took advantage of when they had their advantage. And I just I truly think they're going to give the Celtics some problem first round. I think that they are more talented than people give them credit for. I think they're more talented than their record. Going in, I was really bullish. I love the DeJounte Murray and Trae Young pairing. Hasn't really worked out. But I don't know. Last night, an example of it working out. Are they hitting their stride at a very unique time in the season? But if they are, I mean, they're really, really good.
Like you said, on paper, it's a really good team. You look at who they built around Trae Young, and it's we'll get into this here a little bit more in a minute, but it's hard to build a team around Trae Young, to be honest. With the way he dominates the ball, with what you lose on defense, with Trae Young's size, it's hard to build a roster around him that really fits together, can really compete at the highest level. But what they did last night, they leaned into their advantage, which was size. I mean, Miami's been starting Caleb Martin, who is a 3 at the 4 position. Tyler Hero could be a turnstile on defense. Sometimes it's not even there. Gabe Vincent competes, but I mean, he's 6'3". He's not a huge guy. Jimmy competes, but he can't compete against Clint Capella or Congo in the paint. He's not that big. And then even Bam is at a slight size disadvantage a lot of the time. So, I saw the Hawks, like you said, rely on those cuts, rely on the screens, and the scheme to switch in the first, I think it was the first half or so, killed the Heat. You were switching somebody who was already probably at a size disadvantage for someone that was at more of a disadvantage. So it went from Caleb Martin to Tyler Hero or Kyle Lowry. And they were getting backed into the post, and all the Hawks had to do was a little hook shot, a little layup, a little turnaround, something like that. And they were easy points. And they went to that until, like you said, the scheme was changed a little bit, and it helped them a little bit, but the Hawks withstood that run. I think that's the most important thing for the Hawks. Unlike a couple other teams in the play-in tournament, they withstood the run, and they got back on track, and Trae Young did just enough to get them over the hump. So props to them for that. I will give them their props. As hard as it is for me to say that, I will give them their props. They played a good game.
Yeah, no, I mean, makes sense. I totally understand the frustration, especially coming from the Heat side. I just think it was a story of bad play, but also good play, I'd say.
For sure. There's two sides to every story. And Yeah, it's no different for that one. But one more 7-8 game that we had was the Lakers Timberwolves. Just real quick, Towns really just, I don't know. I key in on him because he's so talented, but he frustrates me a lot, and it comes down to his mentality. That's all it is. Like, he had 5 fouls, and I alluded to this in our conversations about Jalen Williams, but the 5 fouls, he got a lot less aggressive once he was at 4 fouls. His shot attempts went way down. I mean, he still only attempted 12 shots in that game. So, I mean, that ranked him 3rd behind Anthony Edwards and Kyle Anderson in terms of total shot attempts, and just ahead of Taurean Prince and Mike Conley. They had 11.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there you go.
Aggressiveness went down. I feel like he can assert his will at times, but I like in a play-in playoff game, I need to see it the whole way. And that kind of frustrates me a little bit. So I just wanted to go to him first. But on the flip side, the other guys stepped up. I mean, let's count it out. I mean, they were out McDaniels. They were out Gobert. I mean, several guys.
So many. Yeah.
Missing for them. They were out Naz Reid. So the fact that Taurean Prince and Mike Conley were able to – and Jalen Noel had 9 points, 4-7 shooting.
Yeah. He had some big shots down the stretch.
Yeah. So all 3 of those guys picked it up. They rallied the team. And, Ant-Man didn't really come through on offense like people expected him to. But those other guys picked up the slack. So credit the Timberwolves others, especially Taurean Prince. I feel like he's been on a tear recently. Great 3-point shooting. The perfect 3-and-D guy that the Timberwolves needed in the absence of Jaden McDaniels. So all those guys have been excellent. Couldn't quite get it done. Even Nickeil Alexander-Walker had 11 points, 4 or 5 shooting. So that's 4 guys outside of your core that got it done for you. So that's the key for the Timberwolves. As far as the Lakers go, what was your big kind of takeaway from their performance now that they've made it through and they're going into a matchup with the Grizzlies?
No, I mean, it was just came down to second chance points. I felt that they got a lot of big rebounds. I felt that they started to just lock in defensively down the stretch, and LeBron.
Yep.
I don't really know any other way to say it. He just kind of did LeBron things at the end. And Dennis hitting that shot's big, and I feel like there were a lot of chances that they gave up that just shouldn't have happened, like AD's foul and Mike Conley, a lot of different situations. And it seemed a lot closer than it should have been by the end, I would say.
Yeah.
But they're definitely going to be a handful. And like you were saying with Kat, that's absolutely true. I think got to give a little bit of leeway. Anthony Davis has mastered if I'm not getting the rebound, I'm going to dive down on the floor. Irritates me to my core. Seeing him just flop, it's not even a flop. It's just if they're going up for the rebound, it's a dive, and he spends more time on the floor than anyone I've ever seen.
He does. He really does.
But you're right. I mean, the Timberwolves have a lot of figuring things to have to do, and they got a big game coming up, and see how it works out. But a lot of things. I mean, Anthony Edwards, if he makes an All-NBA, there's that 30% max. But if not 30%, he'll get 25% max extension. The salary cap situation, you just got to keep going for it, and we'll see what they can do.
We shall see. I'm glad you pointed that out with Ant-Man's upcoming extension. I mean, he's eligible this summer, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Time flies.
I mean,
he's already.
If he makes an All-NBA, I assume he won't.
Probably not. I think other guys will beat him out a little bit, but yeah, either way, I mean, he's coming up on it.
Still a ton of money.
A lot of money. In a rising cap, that's a lot of money. I mean, let's not get twisted. That's crazy. He's actually, he's extension eligible this year. So, I mean, right before next season, he's probably going to get that extension because he'll be 3 years in, coming off the last year of his rookie scale deal. So that's pretty impressive. Definitely worth talking about. I mean, Schroeder, just to kind of wrap it up with the Lakers, I mean, he looked like he was going to leave the game at one point with that ankle roll. So,
Yep.
I mean, the fact that he was able to tough it out and come back, and I mean, he put on his best Isaiah Thomas impression coming off an ankle injury. And no, he wasn't like limping down the court like Isaiah was in those NBA finals, but I mean, like a bad ankle roll, he came back out there and like he was playing like it never happened.
That's for sure. He was a big reason why they obviously with the big shot, but they were a big reason why they really figured that game out, and he's going to play a big pivotal role in the playoffs, I'd say.
Big time. So I'm excited for the matchup against the Grizzlies. I think they have quite the advantage inside with the Grizzlies being down a couple of guys, Steven Adams, and then Brandon Clark. I think that leaves a little bit of a void in the middle that the Lakers can take advantage of because that's their strength. As we saw in the Timberwolves game, they shot 9 more free throws than the Timberwolves in that game. And I think that will continue. So We'll see if they can kind of carry that. We'll see if the others for the Lakers can continue to step up. D'Angelo, hopefully it's a little bit better than 1 of 9 the next time they go out and play.
I mean, paint me surprised that D'Angelo Russell didn't show up in a playoff game. Sorry.
Well, I'm sure Timberwolves know all about that.
Yeah, exactly.
They know all about those troubles, so nothing new. But yeah, one last topic here to round things out today, and that's going to be going back to Trae Young here a little bit. We just talked about. So as we know, Trae Young has appeared in some trade talks recently. Apparently, the front office has received the green light to, I guess, put him out in some trade offers, it's interesting because we could be looking at another Kevin Durant scenario where, you're at the beginning of your next contract. KD was at year 1 of a 4-year extension. Trae Young, I believe, just finished the first year of his extension, which, runs from 2022 until, if he picks up his option in 2027, that 5-year deal. So he's going into year 2. So this is a guy that's in a contract for at least 3 more seasons. So it's another situation where we have a player under contract for many more seasons. And no, he didn't ask for a trade, so it's not the same thing. But if they do get serious about offering up in a trade, this would be interesting to follow with that $40 million contract on the way out. And I'm sure that the Hawks will be looking for not just solid picks, but solid players.
Yep.
Because with the way the team is constructed, I mean, you don't want to ship out Trae Young and then have to start over. You want to stay competitive. If you have DeJounte Murray, if you have John Collins and Bogdanovich and Capella, you want to be competitive. So we're going to have to see how that goes. But I wonder how that works out along with DeJounte Murray's upcoming free agency. He has 1 more season left after this. So there's a lot going on in Atlanta.
Absolutely. I think it goes back to what we were saying. I had a lot of higher hopes for them. I think they now have a situation that, it's a tough situation. And I definitely listen to the trade rumors with a grain of salt. I mean, it's Trae Young. I understand the conversations and discourse around him, but he's still one of the top guards in our league, and he would command a very, very big offer. But there are a lot of decisions that the Hawks have to make that are definitely tough and probably contrary to what they want. But, something has to work out. Obviously, they haven't gotten the offer they want for John Collins because they haven't done it when he's been on the trade block for 3 years. You went out and got Sadiq Bey, DeAndre Hunter. You got a talented roster. And if you can appease Trae Young, I'd say continue going for it. But, there's a lot of ifs for sure.
I think that's the kicker here is how long do they want to conduct this experiment? Because now with this core, I mean, this is basically like the 3rd season that this core has been together with Bogdanovich, Collins, Capella, Hunter. Murray is new, but I mean, this overall core, Okongwu, they've been together for a while. Now, what I think might happen is maybe they think about trading him this season. They're like, okay, you know what? DeJounte and Trae Young, let's give him another season to gel. How about that?
Yep.
AJ Griffin, give him another year to grow into his NBA role. Sophomore year. Cool. Let's get Saddiq Bey another year to figure it out. We have one more year before he's a restricted free agency and a restricted free agent in 2024. Okay, cool. Let's let that ride. John Collins, maybe for I think like the 15th year in a row, they'll be looking at a trade talks for John Collins.
So, clearly, they're not getting the offer they want. So
no. I mean, he's owed $25 million next year, 26 in 2024 and 5. So I mean, we're talking about in excess of $80 million over the next 3 years. And he has a player option at the end of it, so that's not easy to move, and his value is down because this year with DeJounte and Trae Young in the backcourt, guess what happens to John Collins' touches? His usage goes from here to here. Yeah. I mean, he's way less shots, way less usage. I think he's a little disgruntled, a little frustrated. I can see that. I can see why. And it just seems like his value is down, so that doesn't help their ability to trade him. So what do you think about them writing it out, maybe just pushing those talks another year down the line? Because, I mean, really, if there's smoke, there's fire. It's kind of like my thoughts on the matter. Like, are they actively shopping him? Maybe not. But at least the question has come up. Like,
no, absolutely.
Around him with his defensive deficiencies. This is the third year, hasn't quite worked out. We've underperformed. I just think there's at least some questions in their mind as whether or not it's worth keeping him long term, I guess is
absolutely. I mean, it's no secret the McMillan and Trae Young pairing didn't work. They butted heads a lot, and we know based on the video, McMillan's son still works there, and he's now butting heads with Trae. And
that's awkward.
Yeah. I just there are a lot of things, and they have to pick a side. The organization has to pick a side, and I'd say you got to run it back. You don't really have flexibility to do really something else, and unless you get an unbelievable offer, I'm pretty inclined to say that you run it back and just give Quinn Snyder a whole offseason to figure it out.
I think that's the other part of it too. Like Quinn Snyder just came on board. He had less than 20 games with this team before.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's worth giving another year because Quinn Snyder hasn't had a chance to implement his offense, I think, to the degree that he wants to, which, as we saw with the Jazz, is an equal opportunity offense where there's a lot of ball movement, there's a lot of cutting, there's a lot of just keeping the thing moving, keeping players moving. So I think for a guy like Trae Young, and I saw this in a recent article as well, he played a lot more off ball in Oklahoma. So if he can get back to that level of play where, like, hey, maybe Murray does control the ball a little bit more, but Trae is more of an off-ball player, that could benefit from an offensive perspective. So I want to see how that plays out before they do anything.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot to see here. Let's monitor the summer. The big question I want to kind of end this off on is, like, what do they do with DeJounte? I mean, $17 million expiring contract. I mean, you're going to have to make a big decision on him one way or another.
Absolutely. No, you are absolutely right. I think it's something that they're going to have to monitor. I still think that the fit, especially on paper, is great with Trae. And like you said, maybe they need another year. But it's definitely something you gotta be ready for. I mean, like you said, he's a free agent coming up. And it's one of those things, like, I feel like if it doesn't work out, it's just we tried and now we're figuring something else out,
Exactly. Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. So it's a wait and see, but I mean, there's some tough decisions coming for the Hawks, I think, real soon. Well, that's about all we got, guys. I appreciate you all for tuning in to another episode of this pod. Aaron, appreciate you coming on once again. Always a great time. Yes, sir. So if you guys are looking for more resources, such as where we get our cap numbers from, who's a free agent, whether they have an option or not, all that information is over at notradeclause.com. So if you're looking to see what year is Trae Young have a player option, when is DeJounte Murray going to become an unrestricted free agent, when is Okongwu going to be a restricted free agent, all that information is on our website, free to view, along with draft capital, everything like that. So be sure to check out our website for all those resources, as well as the full catalog of all our podcast episodes. So, guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode. Stay tuned because we have more coverage coming here from the playoffs and going into the draft in the offseason. So we're just getting warmed up here at No Trade Clause. stay tuned for more great content. We'll catch you guys on the next installment of NTC. And until then, have a good one.